my Pendulum Magicians. Yeah, so this is a very net deck, but like, it's so good and so consistent, I couldn't help but play it. So yeah, here's the deck. So for the low scales, you run 3 purple poison. It has 2 really good effects. It pops cards when it's destroyed, or it gains attack. So it's really useful for boosting up your monsters in like the grind game. The second low scale is Oath. Oath is amazing because when it's summoned, you can return a card back. So oftentimes in the later games, I would use this to return back the Vortex and return back the Absolute so I can use it again with the Astrographs. Its effect to add a card back from the top of the extra deck is really good because you can add back the Wisdom Mind Magician and then use it again to get a Black Fang or Harm for your scales. So Oath is really good. And then the mid scale is Wisdom. Wisdom is really good. It's just so versatile because you can pop it and then replace it with any card. So if you have a high scale, get a low scale. If you have a low scale, get a high scale. It's also a really good target for Astrograph whenever you're special summoning, because then you could also replace your scales after using Electromite. It's really good. Now for the high scales, the 3 Harmonizing. Harmonizing is really amazing. It's really standard in this deck. When you Pendulum Summon it, you get another special summon out of it. It's one of the best cards in this deck. And then the last one is the Black Fang. Black Fang has 2 really good effects. When it's in this scale, it deduces your opponent's monster by half, and then when it's popped and sent to the extra deck, you can bring back a card from the grave. So what normally I do is I bring back the Astrographs that I used to make the Absolute. So it's really good. Another thing is you run 3 copies of each of the Pendulum Magician cards because you need as many targets for Astrograph as you can to replenish your hand. So it's really good for that. So that's why you just run 3 copies of each of the Magicians. And then for the extender cards, you have your 3 Astrograph and the 3 Chronographs. Obviously Astrograph is like the best card in this deck. It what enables it to do all these stupid plays, but Astrograph is really good. Chronograph is like, it's not as good as Astro, but you run it because you need the targets for the 2 Garnets. You have Time Gazer and Stargazer. You don't like to draw these, but if you do, you just get rid of them with Allure and you just keep going on with your plays. Another cool thing is like you can pop Astrograph. If you have 2 Astrographs, pop Astrograph, special summon out Stargazer, and then special summon the Astrograph, grab another Astrograph, and you can make an Electromite right there without your normal summon, which is really good. So yeah, Astrograph is the best card in this deck, but yeah, those are the 2 extenders, and then you have Rescue Hamster. Rescue Hamster is probably one of the best cards in this deck because you just tribute itself, and as long as you have a target in the gray or in the top of the extra deck, you can just special summon 2 hamsters for free. So oftentimes this would replace the Sculpturac Joker that you would have. So you would just use this, bring out 2, get into another Electromite oftentimes, and even its scale effect is really good because if it's in the later game, you banish the Rescue Hamster and get back your 2, the 2 Wisdom Eyes, and just make 2 new scales and then just Pendulum Summon. So Rescue Hamster is probably one of the best extenders in this deck. And then Curtain Raiser. You run the Curtain Raiser for going first and then just setting this and automatically going into like the Electromite. It's really good. It's just an extender. The last extender cards are the Mythical Beast Engine. You run the 3 Master Cerberus and then the 2 King Jackal or Jackal Kings. This is a really good card. Most people use the Supreme King Engine, but the thing with the Supreme King Engine is it's only really good and replaces your normal summon, whereas this doesn't replace a normal summon. So you could use your normal summon to make another Electromite, but the only thing with this card is when you use Master Cerberus, and if they Ash the Cerberus, it stays there. So it's just a dead card that you can't get rid of, and you can't Pendulum Summon with it. But other than that, it's a really good card, and Jackal is what oftentimes you'd use to make your negates. So like in the end of the board, you should have like a Jackal, and then you would end up with 4 interruptions or 3 depending on your hand. So yeah, this package is really good. The last cards are just draw cards. I just played the 3 Allure, the 2 Desires, and the 1 Upstart. You run so many Dark Monsters, Allure just banishes them, draw 2, you draw more extenders and it helps. Pot of Desires, you only use Pot of Desires after you've done your combo, or if you're missing combo pieces, but as long as you have your 3 Astrograph in the top of the extra deck, you're totally fine. And then the 1 Upstart is just, it's a 39 card deck. So like, those are all the cards of the main deck. I wouldn't really change anything about it. Like, the dude who I got this from, he was really specific on how to build this deck, and I kept it the same way he did because of the consistency. Because I noticed if you change 1 or 2 cards, it just becomes a brick. And oftentimes those bricky hands, you get out of it with your draw cards or like your extenders. And if you just keep bricking, when you keep adding more cards, it doesn't help the deck at all. And it's supposed to be a turbo deck anyway.
How much is the value on the main deck, like by itself?
Honestly, like, the only expensive cards are going to be the Mythical Beasts. Mythical Beast, I don't know how Astrograph is, but Mythical Beast, the Wisdom Eye, that's pretty much it. It's the Mythical Beast engine is going to be the most expensive. Like, I spent 60 bucks on it, but I mean, you could get it definitely cheaper now. And the allures, but I mean, other than that, the quantity of the main deck is really cheap. But the extra deck, on the other hand, gets a little expensive. But like, main deck
everything.
Yeah, extra deck is literally everything. So for the extra deck, you run 3 Electromites.
Oh boy.
Yeah, one of the most expensive. No, this is the most expensive card. Yeah. But basically, you run the 3 Electromites. You want to make 3 Electromites every single turn you do, or every single first turn or second turn. And it's so feasible in this deck, it's ridiculous. Like, you would set up 3, and then get rid of 2 to make a Firewall, and then Pendulum summon 3. And it just opens up so much space, and it gives you so much advantage with the Astrograph, and you draw cards off it. It's just a really nutty card. And even if you open up just 2, you can still make a Vortex Naruto negate, which is still 2. So like, no matter what happens, this deck allows you to make a negate to stop your opponent's plays. So yeah, you run the 3 Electromite, then the 1 Underclock Taker. This is a better proxy. There's just really no point to running proxy, and you need another number 2. So Underclock Taker is good for the later games. Its effect to like get rid of monsters' attack is really, like, it's somewhat effective depending on what part of the game you're in, but normally whenever you're going first and you establish your board, your opponent pretty much either just scoops or tries to get rid of it. Unless they have a sphere mode, it's really hard for them to get rid of it. But yeah, Underclock Taker just helps in the later games. The other link cards I run are the Zephyra, the Trigate. These are the 2 rank 3s. And then the Firewall. Firewall is the card that you abuse the most out of in this deck. You make the Underclock Taker, and then you pop it, or you get rid of it with the Vortex to make your, or get rid of the Absolute to make your Vortex, and then you can also make, you can special summon out the Jackal King, and that gives you another negate. Firewall's the good card. Trigate you use to link these 2 to have another interruption. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll make this, and then if it's later on in the game, you could also put the Underclock Taker so you can get the second effect to banish. So Trigate's really good in this deck. And then the Zephyr Metaltron, whenever you open up 2 Electromites, you just get rid of 2 to make this thing. It's a better decode talker in this deck because you don't give your opponent the arrow, which is really important. So, and you get to use 3, so you Pendulum summon 3 basically, and it's really effective. So this card's really good. Oh, another thing about the card is its other effect allows you to send a card back to the extra deck if a card is destroyed that it points to. So you could send back cards that are vital to your cards, like Electromite you could send back, or the, what's it called? The Firewall. It just depends. It has a really good utility when it comes to that. So fusions, the 2 Starving Venom. This card is so good because it just copies Electromite and you just use its effect again. So rather than having just 3 Electromites, you have 5 in the deck. You copy the effect, get an Astrograph, get another one, and then you just overlay both of them to make a Hope Harbinger Dragon, so you get another negate. This card's really good in the deck. Only run 2 because you don't really need it for the later game, in all honesty, because the duel pretty much ends at turn 2 or 3, or even 4 depending. They can break your board.
And you're not running the instant fusion for the leaderless gal.
Yeah, the FTK goes really, like, the FTK is good when it's going first against this deck, but when you're going second against this deck, you just need to negate the 1 card, which is instant fusion, and they basically lose their whole point of the deck. They lost their win condition. So that's all you gotta negate. And then the best negate, basically the judgment of the deck, is Vortex Dragon. This card's so good. You just make it with Absolute, and it just sits there and negates stuff, and you get to send stuff back from the extra deck to the top of, or send stuff from the extra deck to your deck, so it replenishes it. So this is a really good card, and it's a negate. And then for the Xyz, the Vortex, or the Absolute, you make Vortex with this. Naruto, I make this sometimes. It just depends on the board. You either make this, or you make or you special summon out the Jackal King, but this would be your 4th or 5th negate, or 3rd negate depending on your hand. And then the last one is the Hope Harbinger. You would make this with the 2 Supreme Kings. So those are all the Xyzs. And then the final 2 cards, I just run the Ignister and then the Supreme Clearwing. This is just a board wipe. Like if you're going 2nd, you just make this clear their board. It's also really good for baiting out negates. And then this, you just pop a card, pop their card, and then it's really effective because if you pop like your Purple Poison, pop 2 cards on their field. If you pop a Black Fang, you get to return a card back, so you return your Astrograph, and then you can make another card for it. So Ignister is really good. It's a non-targeting removal, so that's the main reason why I run these 2. As opposed to running more extenders, that's the one thing I changed about the deck. The thing is, you don't need so many extenders in the deck because oftentimes in the later games, if they do break through your board with like a Sphere Mode or Kaiju or something, it's really beneficial to have these because you can just make these with the 1 harmonizing, and then it's pretty much game for you if they don't have a negate. So that's why I run these 2. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
No side deck?
No side deck. I haven't built a side deck for this yet. The only thing that this deck is really vulnerable to is cherries, because if you get rid of the 3 Electromites, the deck is dead. So like, if it's in game 2, they basically cherries you, it's, oh well, go to game 3 and like, you'll probably win with the 3 negates, hopefully. But yeah, this deck is just super consistent, super powerful. The bricky hands are even better, because like, you can't really brick in this deck unless you draw like Time Gazer, Stargazer, and then 2 Astro. But even then, you still can do something with it. So yeah, this is a really good deck, and I highly recommend it to anybody who's playing Pendulum Magicians or wants to pick up the deck, because I'm not gonna say it's super cheap, but it's cheap in terms of the meta decks. The only thing that's like expensive is the extra deck, but yeah, that's pretty much it. It's really